Today I get to interview my good friend, trusted advisor, Zach Levin. Zach, thanks for taking the time for me today.
Thanks for having me here. I'm excited to talk and yeah, learn from you as well.
And as everybody knows, these are three quick questions. It's raw, it's unscripted, so let's just dive in. Zach,
Oh, good.
the first thing I always think about is you just switched geographic locations, started a new business.
Yep.
And when I met you in your law firm, there was this concept of, okay, I've got existing clients, and now I've got to build new clients, new prospective clients as well. So, how has that geographical shift worked? How have you been able to maintain those existing clients and grow a new base? But at the same time, they all see you as virtual. You're kind of in one place that's kind of everywhere, but now you're no longer the guy that was in New York, the guy that's in Florida. You're kind of everywhere. So, how's that worked to your benefit over the last year?
Yeah, super interesting. And it's a good question. Particularly as a lawyer, I used to identify myself as very much being a New York City guy. I also thought that sort of clients wanted that. They wanted the prestige of a New York City lawyer. And I think what actually happened is like a lot of things we noticed during COVID, like maybe that was more of a crutch than an asset. Because what I realized is, you know what, like the people I was always resonating with were startup founders. And when I finally moved out of New York City, and I told founders I did that, we thought a lot about like, do we tell founders I'm not in New York City anymore? And I sort of just leaned into it and embraced it. And I actually found that it probably raised my legitimacy with founders because they like that my firm is remote, that it was really easy for me to relocate. It almost like spoke to our credentials that we are a tech first remote enabled law firm. So in a lot of ways, I actually think this has helped my business develop because it makes my experience more authentic with the founders that I work with.
Yeah, that's so true because all these startups that are launching, they're all remote. Nobody's sitting in an office somewhere. They're all remote. And so you're kind of meeting them where they are. That's really cool.
Yeah, it also like, even like from my firm's branding, I was like, well, do I put like, an Empire State Building in there or like a Statue of Liberty? Like, do I tie like my law firm to New York City some way? And in connection with COVID and like thinking about it, I really wanted like, yes, I'm a New York lawyer. I do New York, Delaware law, but I wanted the perspective to be more global. Like this is just a dude that works with founders around the world and sort of escape from this idea that like things happen in New York. Because I don't think that's the way that the tech clients I work with, I don't think they see the world that way. They have a much more globalized view of the world and technology.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, what a huge advantage they have now, which they didn't have before, where you either had to be in New York or San Francisco, and that was it, right? Now
Yeah,
you can
for
kind of
sure.
be. I love your website too, just what you said. First time I saw it, I was like, wait, is he going to add some image or whatnot? But the idea of being simple, getting that across, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Um,
That's also part of this idea of like only appealing to founders because most other people don't want to hire me anyway. So I'm only trying to appeal to a very specific band of potential client. That took a big shift too, because I don't know a lot of lawyers that do that. They try to like sort of appeal to everyone with this sense of authority. So we sort of walked away from that, which was contentious internally to go down that road.
so my next question, there is always this idea with lawyers and the idea of trust. And one way to get past trust in the old days, let's call it, is a handshake. First time we met, we shook hands, we clicked, we talked, we left that meeting, we shook hands, whatever. But now there's no handshake, right? There's no handshake virtually, or
Yep.
it's just not there, right? And so that used to always signify, hey, a deal's done, or I trust this person. We're going to shake hands. We're going to move forward and do that.
Yep.
And that's not done. And so now, as we enter kind of the post-pandemic world, this next normal world, where do you see this professional services industry going with tax, finance, legal, of course? Where do you see that going? Is it a hybrid model? Is it a virtual first and then in person? How do you see that shaping out?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, starting first with your question about like, there's no handshake. How do you build trust? I think you have to lead with abundance, right? You have to offer value first and foremost. And so I think like your and my relationship is actually a pretty good example. Like you and I have probably had like a dozen conversations about different legal topics, but we've actually never had a formal legal relationship where we've
Yep.
signed an engagement letter, like exchanged money. It was always just like, hey, here's my thoughts on a topic. I'm going to be good in your network. You're going to be good in my network. You've made intros for me. I've made intros for you. And sort of like this understanding that you and I are building a relationship for the long term. And I don't need to like, yes, I like to get paid, but I don't need a dollar to be helpful.
Yeah.
And I think you took that approach and I took that approach. And I think that's the way that, most people want to see business done.
All right, last question. I always like try to make this a little bit more fun.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
One of the things we always end up talking about is we go on a tangent and we start talking about startups. We start, what are you seeing? What am I seeing? Who do we know? We always end up with like the same group.
Yeah.
You've even introduced me to a lot of really cool startups that I've grown on and built relationships with now. So in your world, you always say, I don't want to be looked at just like a lawyer. I want to be looked at someone you can bring a question to me. I want to talk to founders. I want to talk to people with ideas and concepts. And it's not just me and my legal expertise, but it's me and my network and my relationships. So have there been any startups, a couple of startups that you've seen lately that you think fit the mold of ones that are going to do really well in this new world, where it might be a virtual first, or they just understand that the technology is caught up, that people are ready for the right time for those types of launches?
It's funny. I actually have no idea. And I think it's like I recognize my own when I think of like the word humility, I may be authority on like good legal structure, but I actually have no idea which startups are going to win in the long run. I think like to build a business from scratch and have it go nuclear and really explode and be in the hands of thousands or millions of people, so many dominoes have to fall just right. I have no ability more than anyone else to, I think, play that game and predict it. So I wish I knew, but I honestly don't. What I actually like about this whole job, and is my favorite part of the job, I just like watching the founders I work with solve problems. I just think it's fascinating to watch like different obstacles come up in their way and just seeing how like month after month they just like hammer away at it and solve for it and then like keep their businesses moving forward. That's what I think is cool. And those are the founders I guess I would bet on, who just seem to never stop and like nothing deters them. I think that's cool.
Yeah, I agree. You can kind of see the fire in their eyes. They see these big opportunities coming and they're just going for it. So
Yeah.
that's great. Well, thank you for taking the time. Anybody
Yeah.
that's interested, check Zach out at lawbylevin.com. We'll highlight it here in the video. But thank you, Zach, for taking the time. This has been really informative. And I urge everybody to check him out. Really forward thinking person that's really on the pulse of everything that's happening. Thank you, Zach.
Cool. Thanks.